Or are we asking too much of such young riders?
I think you're asking too much of some of the younger riders in the class. There's 12-year-old riders in this in their first year. Some riders making their debut in the Asia Talent Cup. I think it's fine for the riders at the front of the field that have that bit of experience, but some of those riders a little bit further back at a brand new track like we have here in Mandalika as well, a track where we saw a lot of incidents yesterday. I think it's best to err on the side of caution.
Yes, fair range of ages, as you say, from Veda Pratama at 12 years of age upwards. Of course, there will be an age limit of 13 for any new riders from next season, and then for 2023, if I'm not mistaken, that goes up.
It's happened this year. Really important to be able to make some of those changes, and that increase in the minimum age is going to be something that's going to make a big difference. Speaking to some of the riders that have come through into the Talent Cups over the last few years, the one thing that they've said is adapting to a bike of this size, tyres and wheels of this size, is actually one of the biggest challenges, moving from mini bikes onto these kind of bikes, and that's where it takes a little bit of time to get that experience. But certainly all these riders, we've seen it time and time again in the ATC over the years, they're all very competitive, very fast. There's a really good screening process now to get through these riders. I was actually in Malaysia a couple of years ago for the MotoGP race, went down to the karting track in Sepang where they did the tryouts for ATC, and it really is a case of getting the best of the best from each of the different regions. Obviously here in the Asia Talent Cup, you're taking in a pool of talent from Asia, the Middle East, and then also Australasia as well, so you get the Australians, New Zealand riders can get the opportunity to race here. We've seen Turkish riders like the Onchu brothers racing in this class in the past, and then obviously a whole host of Asian riders, whether it's the likes of Somkya Chantra here from Indonesia, the likes of Kaito Toba, the first champion coming from Japan. This is the chance for these riders. It means that you're able to have affordable racing, show your talent, give yourself the chance of moving on to the bigger stage. That's been one of the big positives we've seen since 2014 with the start of the ATC.
Riders making their way round towards the start line then, a 12-lap race ahead of us. And if you're just joining us after a slight delay, we're building up to race 2 of round 3 in the 2021 Asia Talent Cup, and what could be a title decider. Taiyo Furusato on a maximum 125 points, and if he maintains that winning run for another race here this afternoon now, I was about to say this morning, but we've now crossed into afternoon with the delayed start, then Furusato will be crowned as the winner, because he will not be able to be caught. 51 points would be the very minimum that he would be ahead if he were to win this race. Only 50 points up for grabs after this race, with the third race of the weekend coming up this afternoon as we embark on round 4 on the same day that we finish round 3, and then the final race of the Asia Talent Cup season tomorrow.
Yeah, not confusing at all, and certainly for the ATC riders, they're not going to be confused when the lights go out in a couple of minutes' time. They're going to come to the grid now, and then they'll go out for their actual sighting lap to the start of the race. But what we saw in yesterday's running, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens now today, is on the run down in towards turn 1, we saw the number 15 of Furusato from the second row of the grid get pinched on the run into turn 1. That's easily can be the case as well, so riders do need to be careful in that run into turn 1. 90-degree right-hander.
Reminder of the grid then for race 2, and it's a slightly different order to what we had for race 1 yesterday. It was a demolition derby at the first time of asking around this Mandalika International circuit, and 2 riders unfortunately withdrawn through injury. Kanta Hamada fractured left forearm, and Hakim Denish a crash from 5th position. He's out with a double fracture to his right wrist. So we're 2 riders down, but that does mean that several riders promoted to be a little bit closer to the front, and a couple of riders to watch further down the order. Adrian Deo starting from P10. He was very competitive right from the start, firing his way through in the early stages, and Tetsuya Fujita, who starts from P15, and he managed to work his way up from 17th to 9th at the first time of asking in race 1.
Yeah, even further down the field, when you look at the ATC, you can have riders that just have that one weekend where it really clicks into place. They're able to have good results. You look at the back of the grid, Nicholas on the number 12 machine. He might be starting 19th in this race. He has a top 5 finish to his name in the Qatari rounds as well, so there is speed all the way through the field here in ATC.
And another example. Isolated 7th position, Wakamatsu in 8th for Dilla and Dandy rounding out your top 10, but it was all about the top 2 in the context of the championship. We had a very similar race to what we had yesterday. We had exactly the same outcome, a 6th win of the season for Taiyo Furusato.
Yeah, and if you want to see how on the limit Shuril was to try and make the moves to take the race lead, we saw through turns 6 and 7 he had a bit of a moment. We saw on the run into turns 12 and 13 he had another moment. That was the deciding factor. It meant that into turn 15 Furusato was able to take a normal line. He didn't have to defend the position. He did take a defensive line on the run through 15 into 16, and he was able then to exit the corner nice and clean and hold on to that race victory. He was able to take it by 1/10 of a second, and just like we saw yesterday, able to lead pretty much the whole race here, nice and comfortable. 6 from 6 from Furusato.
And you get the impression that Daniel Sharil just felt that he had to throw everything at Furusato if he was going to have a hope of beating him and pushing this championship fight on. I think realistically, even if Daniel Sharil had got through to hit the front, Furusato would have been a matter of a few points away from claiming the title, and more than likely would have done it this afternoon anyway. But Furusato, 150 points out of a possible 100.